All right, so this is almost 10 o'clock. This is the Next Step Show. Welcome to the Next Step Show. And my name is Pavel Stepanov, your favorite host. As one of the episodes of Next Step Show, as we've said, what we're going to be talking about is the future or the realities of the legal profession. As you guys know, when the COVID hit, there was a lot of uncertainties in the area, in the world, in the industries, in any kind of business. So we have a guest here, my good friend David Mordikov. He's a lawyer in Seattle. Hello, David. How are you?
Hi, good morning, Pavel.
Yeah. Before we start, I just wanted to say that if you guys looking to hire a virtual assistant, you have to look at Virtudesk, one of the sponsors of this podcast. Virtudesk, it's a virtual assistant a company that provides virtual assistants to help you in your small and medium-sized businesses for the fraction of the cost of a person you would hire in-house. David, so let's get to you right now. Thank you for agreeing to be on this podcast and discuss what's been going on in the legal profession. So, as far as I know, like when the first time when COVID hit, like back in March, I spoke with a lot of people, a lot of smart people, and frankly, nobody had any idea what was going on or what's going to be happening, since it was unprecedented time. What's your take on this? How did this affect legal profession? I know you're a lawyer, a personal injury lawyer. You're doing defense work, so tell us, how did it all happen with you guys in your industry, and how did you adapt?
Sure. First of all, thanks for hosting, Pavel. Thanks for having me. Also, special thanks to
Or
Virtudesk for making this possible. And congratulations on your new side gig. I really enjoy your podcast. This seems like a fun project.
thank you.
I
Trying
know
to,
what's that?
trying to make it
Yeah,
fun.
you're doing a great job. And you're the front man. I know there's invisible hands who help you with this gig.
You
So
know
thanks
those
to
hands,
those.
man, very well.
Thanks to those invisible hands. So,
That's
uh,
correct.
hey, in response to your question, I think if as an intelligent, educated individual with an inquiring mind, if 5 months ago you sat and scratched your head, we're doing a lot of this, rubbing your chin and thinking,
Yeah,
what
we
the
had no
heck,
idea what to do.
what the heck is going to happen with the legal profession? You're not the only one. You're not the only one.
No, I spoke with a
And
lot of people. Yeah, and
right.
nobody knew.
Right. Well, I know my law partners here at my law firm, Gardner Tobolsi and Associates, and I were talking about this. And back in the day, March, April, when we're looking at it, we were thinking there's not a snowball's chance in hell that jury trials were going to resume this year. In fact, we didn't even think jury trials were going to resume
Wow.
next year, which we've been proven wrong, and I'm glad to report. I'm happy to report we've been proven wrong. But I think
So tell us, back in March when it all happened, when everybody shut down, when President announced 15-day to flatten the curve, then the governor announced stay-home orders, so everything was shut down. The courts were shut down, so you guys couldn't do any work, right? You couldn't do any depositions. I mean, you probably could do over the phone, I guess, or Zoom, but I mean, meeting with a client is probably can be done on Zoom, I assume. But how about the court thing? Because you have to appear in front of a judge, and the court rules are very specific. They don't prescribe anything about Zoom.
right, right, very true. I think in order to understand the impact the pandemic had on the legal profession, there's a couple of things we need to talk about in terms of the what was it about the COVID that became so catastrophic? And I think to me, it's how precipitate it was, right? How quickly it dropped from, January 20th, 2020,
Hmm.
when the first confirmed case of the COVID was reported in Snohomish County. This was,
Yeah,
what, half a year ago, a little more than
yeah,
that.
exactly.
Seems
And they
like a
were saying
distant memory.
here in Washington, we're the Wuhan of the United States because we
Yeah.
had like the first outbreak happened here.
And if on January 15th someone asked you what's COVID, you probably wouldn't
Yeah,
know, or you'd be
no idea.
thinking this is something back in China,
Yeah,
right?
exactly.
And it's hard to imagine that, it's been part of our life for a little over 6 months, and it just changed the fabric of who we are as a society. So, January 20th, when this was first reported in Snohomish County, and then shortly thereafter, about 2, 3 weeks after, in mid March, the Washington State Supreme Court signed an order effectively putting a hold on all jury trials, civil
On
or
everything.
criminal. And, from that point forward, a lot of smart people sat together and said, what are we going to do? How are we going to address this crisis? How are we going to balance the public's interest in
Access to justice,
maintaining their
basically.
constitutional rights, right?
Hmm.
Right to jury, as opposed
Yeah.
to the public health crisis, and how do we protect our public? And I'm happy to report that, we're in mid-September now. We're trying. King County is trying jury cases. King
On Zoom.
County. What's that?
On Zoom.
Well, it's a hybrid. I'll tell you in a second how they're
Yeah, I
doing
would like
it.
to.
But
Would love to know about it. Yeah.
uh, 2 weeks ago, we had our first multi-million-dollar verdict in an asbestos personal injury lawsuit, returned by a jury which was selected by Zoom and was impaneled at the Maidenbauer Center, an off-site courthouse, what we call courthouse now. They came back with
Hmm.
a $14 million award in damages, which is the first multi-million dollar post-COVID asbestos case. So how
Wow.
do we get from Washington State Supreme Court saying no jury trials in
To
mid-March
actually having jury trials. Yeah,
and
6 months
getting
down the
verdicts?
road,
Right.
and a verdict.
So go ahead.
Yeah, this is just amazing, man. So because considering all the limitations on on the use of space, I assume on social distancing and everything, this was probably, yeah. And when the Supreme Court, like the highest court in the state, says no more, you gotta be doing thinking, what am I gonna do, right?
Right.
And we have a bunch of individuals, we have a bunch of people who actually need access to justice,
Precisely.
and justice delayed is justice denied.
That's very true. On the other side of the spectrum, you have this well-known adage that says that the wheels of justice turn very slowly,
They do.
but grind exceedingly fine, right? So you got to
That's
find that
correct.
balance. Um, so um, I think the way to look at it is, first of all, let me just give a shout out to the fact that I'm not the only Juris Doctor on this call. Okay, I mean, I don't know if the audience knows, but you also went to law school,
I do have a law degree, yes.
and you're also a Juris Doctor, right?
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. Yeah.
You don't have to call me a doctor. I won't call you a doctor
Dr.
either.
Mordegov.
But the reason it's important is, as a law school graduate, you understand that the legal system is very deeply rooted in tradition. Would you agree with that
Oh
statement?
yeah, big time. Of
It
course. That's why I am basically scratching my head how you can actually implement everything, how you can run a jury trial from computer. Basically, one of those things I am perplexed how you can do a voir dire, selection of the jurors by Zoom, because it's one of those things, and the deliberation. How do you do the jury? How do they do a deliberation by Zoom? I mean, there's a sanctity of the jury room. There's the confidentiality of the names of the jurors, and so this is like really opening doors to potential problems, in my opinion. That's why I was really curious to talk to you about it. How it happens.
That's very true. It does create a set of whole, slew of problems that we haven't faced
Hmm.
before. In terms of the logistics, I guess since March, when effectively the entire nation was on the lockdown, there had been two schools of thought on how we're going to maintain the trial by jury and how we're going to bring it back to function. And the two schools of thought are a complete remote approach to jury trials. In other words,
Hmm.
everything is done by Zoom or a similar platform. In other words, you select your jurors by Zoom, you impanel them by Zoom, you try a case by Zoom, so the parties appear virtually, the witnesses appear virtually. That's sort of the remote access approach
The
to the
judges
courtroom.
virtually, right?
Everyone is doing it from the
Yeah,
comfort of their own home. The courthouse comes to you as opposed to the other way around.
that's amazing.
Right?
I know,
The,
right? Seriously.
the other approach is sort of the plexiglass mask social distancing approach. And that's what they're doing at the Mittenbauer Center now. So
In
you
Bellevue.
go ahead.
Yeah. In Bellevue, yeah.
In
Yeah.
Bellevue. Yeah, exactly. Or not too far from where the Virtudesk desk offices are.
Yeah.
And what they do is they create huge spaces. For example, in King County, like you pointed out, they're doing it in Bellevue now. The reason they're doing it at Maidenbauer is because it's so vast, and it
Hmm.
also happens to be sitting vacant, right? Because no one comes to conventions right now.
Exactly.
So
It's a good use of it. Yeah.
exactly, willing buyer to willing seller, and
Yeah.
so they got three, or excuse me, not three, six huge halls, which used to be designed for conventions and conferences and things like
Hmm.
that. So they completely changed it, retrofitted it, and they set chairs 6 feet apart. They put up big screens on the walls, and they're trying cases there. So what they do in King County, they do what's called a hybrid approach. They select a jury by Zoom, and then they try the case in person. So
So
once
they
they
actually bring
select,
the jurors in masks and behind the plastic glass and everything, lawyers in masks, judge
exactly,
wearing a mask is, yeah. Temperature check,
exactly,
I assume. Yeah.
exactly. And
Okay. Go ahead.
you asked me about some of the challenges these new approaches present, and there's a couple ways of looking at it. But one thing we're learning about Zoom
Hmm.
in my own practice, Zoom has gotten to a point where it's a go-to platform for everyone these days, right? I
Yeah,
mean,
it's the new verb now. Let's zoom it.
right,
Pretty much.
exactly. Incidentally, I think this crisis has created a big market space for app developers and platform
Hmm.
developers. And I know a lot of people are racing right
Powerful
now
race.
to
Yeah.
develop a platform that would be designed specifically for jury trials, for courtrooms, because Zoom, is not exactly tailored to that particular application. So
It's
that's
not.
aimed
Yeah.
that's going to be interesting to be seen. In terms of the challenges with jury selection via Zoom, there's a couple of things. First of all, as trial lawyers, and now I'm wearing a hat of trial techniques instructor. I work with the National Institute of Trial Advocacy, and we teach our students how to try cases and how to evaluate your witnesses, how to look at their body language, how to read their nonverbal communications, as part of assessing their credibility. That's
I
very
bet.
hard with Zoom.
And it's right now. It's pretty much just goes out the window. I think.
I mean, I don't know if it entirely goes out of the window, but it's certainly true that the old approaches we used for
Hmm.
this are no longer going to work. Like in the past, when I'm selecting a juror, I'm looking at everything. I'm looking at their shoes, I'm looking at the way they're dressed, I'm looking at their body language, at what they do with their facial expressions, what they do with their hands. If someone is scratching their chin, which is what I'm doing right now, or scratching their head or rubbing their eyes, that's a sign of something important. And if you're experienced and you've been doing this for long enough, you can read into it, some information that's not apparently there to an uninformed observer. So with a jury selection where all you get is essentially a glorified DMV photo, with that can talk, it
Yeah.
becomes really hard to go through that exercise of assessing your potential juror. If in the past the body language was a key component, the nonverbal communications was a key component. Now all of those things can be replaced by a mere fact that someone got a good lighting or a good camera or a better mic, or
Hmm.
you get a 45-degree Rembrandt lighting coming from the top there, and all of a sudden you look much better on the screen. So those are a whole new there's a whole new set of problems that we're going to be dealing with on this.
Also, I
That
can see a potential problems. Let's say on a cross examination, where opposing counsel cross examines your juror. I mean, I don't say you personally, but somebody, let's say on your team, can send that. I'm not sorry, not the juror, but the witness that can send pretty much scripted answers on
right,
private chat or
yeah,
on the
yeah,
phone. There's no way to control that. Where in a courtroom, you can control how the witness answers. Where in this setup, there's a lot of room for fraud or for basically the jury tampering and I mean witness tampering and for witness coaching. I think, and
right.
it
I
can be
mean,
done pretty much on anything.
I think that's a legitimate concern. I think it's important in having this discussion to keep two schools of thought separate. So I was talking about Zoom in terms of jury selection. Now, when you got witnesses testifying
Hmm.
on the witness stand, you still have the option of doing it live, right? So because
Hmm.
once you impanel your jury via Zoom, the next step is for the jurors to report to Maidenbauer if you're doing a civil case, or to the downtown courthouse, King County Courthouse in Seattle if you're doing a criminal case. And the cases are tried in person. But now, because you
Okay.
got the plexiglass and the masks and all of that jazz, that presents a whole set of new problems because you get to see the witness's body language, but you don't
Hmm.
get to see their
Facial
face because
expressions.
I mean, I'm just putting my mask on and I don't want to sound muffled for the audio, but obviously our eyes are the windows of our souls, and that's
Hmm.
all fine and good. But when I'm cross examining a witness or when I'm doing a direct examination of my witness, I want the jurors to be able to see their facial expressions. And if you ask experts, I mean, we can all hopefully smile with our eyes. That's actually a great exercise for everyone in the era of having to wear masks in public. I think it's a great exercise to try and smile with your eyes. It's much easier than a lot of people think. Just soften your gaze a little bit, and that gives you that nice smile, even though you don't have to smile, beneath the mask. But a lot of emotions and a lot of feelings, experts will tell you, are not expressed with your eyes. For example, if I'm concentrated, I'm showing it with my lips. If I'm disgusted, you can only see it on my lower part of the face. So when it's covered by a mask, that's a problem. That's a problem for lawyers. That's a problem for jurors. And not only the ability to assess the witness or to present your witness well, but also the ability to hear them because, you sound muffled. Unfortunately, you sound
Exactly.
muffled.
You are. Yeah, that's right.
And when you got a vast, huge, what used to be a conference room, which is now used for jury trials, then projecting through that fabric of your mask becomes even more important, even though there's mics and everything. But that's another issue. Now, what people have been doing, what judges have been doing, what lawyers have been doing to address this problem, it's quite fascinating. First of all, there's apparently a whole new industry which is now working on smart masks. So
Oh,
those are
this
the masks
see
that,
through.
well, no, well, that's the old school kind of conventional solution to a problem. I shouldn't say old school because there's nothing old school about
There's
COVID.
nothing old school. We're in a new normal.
But one of the solutions is wearing transparent masks, right? Clear masks
Yeah.
so that, and a lot of judges make those available. Now there's a problem with that too because apparently they're not very comfortable. I was told that it feels like
Masks
if
are
you,
not comfortable at all.
yeah, well, masks, fabric masks are not comfortable at all. Imagine doing that, except for it's like a sheet of clear plastic you put over your mouth, and
Yeah.
and you have to talk over it.
What about the face shields? Have they tried face shields like
They
the for the
have, but face shield, if you ask CDC, in order to comply with their guidelines, you can't wear one of those, welders mask
yeah,
where
yeah, well,
it's a
mhm.
clear shield, but the chin is open. That doesn't work. It's more like you need to have something more like a moon suit. It has to be covered here down the chin, and it has to almost go down your neck, which also makes it very uncomfortable. So face shields are not exactly a solution. But another thing they're doing right now, as I started saying, is that they're creating smart masks, which are going to be like smartphones. They're digital. They're going to
Mm-hmm.
be able to record. They're going to be able to amplify. They're going to be able to translate, and they're going to be able to create a transcript. Now, we're probably a couple of years away from that being implemented, but again, this creates a lot of room for creative people to create solutions for these new problems we're facing.
Wow, interesting.
Yeah,
Interesting that the pandemic actually, as we say, as the plague came, it also brought the blessing of innovation, the blessing of that people, some businesses were able to pivot that well that they're actually stepping up big time in their endeavors. I know personally know a lot of people who pivoted their business or completely changed it and just crushing it right now
hmm
during the pandemic, and I think that's just becoming a new, as I say, the new normal. But it's maybe that was a pivotal moment in their careers or businesses. So a lot of innovations, and as you say, like even with the masks, with smart, masks, whatever, and looks like there's a lot of room for innovation in the legal profession as well. And I think that's we're going to be seeing it more and more in the months and years to come. I think, and if somebody's smart enough, they can actually uh, make a lot of money on it.
very
Yeah,
true.
yeah, yeah. That's very interesting. So David, tell us about your practice. You're a personal injury lawyer, right? You're doing both defense and plaintiff's work. My
That's
understanding,
true.
right?
That's
Okay.
true.
How did it impact your business as far as not from the technical standpoint of the people still get into accidents, right?
Well, I mean, March, April, no one was driving, so no one was getting into accidents. But yeah, true. People
Yeah,
still get
that
into
part.
accidents. Yeah. Well, first of all, the governor's stay-home order carved out an exception for essential workers, and the legal profession fell under the category. So, for all intents and purposes, we never shut down entirely, right? And I think the same can be said about the entire legal profession, including the administration of justice. People made an effort, judges made an effort,
Mhm.
the officials made an effort to get the point across clear to everyone. Hey, we didn't come to a screech hole. We're still functioning, limited ability, skeleton crew, but we're still dispensing justice. And I think that's very important for public confidence in the judicial system in general. In terms of my own practice, every crisis, every economic crisis is associated with an influx in filings and influx in lawsuits. So our
Correct. Yeah.
business volume is actually inversely proportional to how the economy is doing. The worse the economy is doing, the more work we have because people are more likely to sue each other. People get more litigious when times are hard. So, in that
That's
respect, we
true.
haven't been affected. If anything, we are busier now than we were this time a year ago. I've changed a few things about my own practice, how I handle my cases, how I handle my depositions, how I handle my client meetings. And even when this whole thing is over, when we have a vaccine or when we figure out another solution to deal with the COVID, I'm never going to go back to my original practice of doing everything face to face. There's just no need for that.
Hmm, interesting. Why is that? So you don't want to meet people? You don't want to waste your time and meet people in person? Tell us
I
about it.
think,
I've heard it from so many people. Like even like when the vaccine comes in, we're not gonna go back to the old way of doing business. So
yeah.
tell me about it. Tell me your idea about it.
So my take on this may be a little different than most other people. I'll be very candid with you as a
Mm-hmm.
white middle-aged man, I am traditionally resistant to change. I'm going to be the first one to admit this, right? And this whole idea, if a year ago someone told me that 90% of my depositions would be done via Zoom,
You
I
wouldn't
would
believe it.
laugh in that person's face. I
Yeah,
would just say,
exactly.
absolutely not. And the reason for that is because my hand was never really forced to try something new. As we talked, the practice of law, the legal profession is very traditional. I mean,
Very
we just,
traditional. Yeah.
we just got rid of the wigs recently, right? I mean,
Like about 100 years ago or so. Yeah. Well, they
and
still
we're
have them in England. They still have them in England courts. Yeah. The
and we're
wigs.
still calling our judges Your Honor, which is
Yeah.
an artifact. I think it's great. It adds to the decorum of the whole experience, but we're very, very traditional, and the way we do things is, this is the way we've been doing it for a very long time, and that's why it's done that way. So the entire system, I think, is very resentful to change, and it's built that way. So the fact that the crisis forced everybody's hands to stick their toes in new waters and say, well, let me try this because I don't have any other way to do it differently, has been a
Hmm.
blessing, really.
Yeah.
I To answer your question, I still feel that the cool new term F2F, face to face, F
Yeah.
numeral
Yeah. 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 Yeah.
so I think F2Fs are still very important.
Yeah.
When you meet with the client, it counts. But for
Hmm.
example, initial client meetings that I have, some of the expert depositions that I have, some of the peripheral witnesses that I interview, I never need to do it in person anymore.
Well,
Um,
and you can have a with the technology, you can have a very good tracking of the billable hours too.
That's true. That's true. And that's I actually put your finger on the great issue here. I think civil litigation is going to be much cheaper going forward because lawyers like myself are going to be
No travel time.
saving. Say again?
No travel time. Yeah.
Exactly. No windshield time.
Yeah.
We're going to be saving thousands and thousands of dollars in not having to travel all over the state.
Yeah.
That's
You don't have
great.
to go to the deposition to some armpit of the state.
Yep.
Yeah,
Yep.
exactly. That's
Yep.
that's again, even though, let's say, when the vaccine comes and when we go back to normal, I think a lot of the not I don't want to say habits or the newly discovered avenues of doing things are going to be in place and probably improved as well. So as I say, the plague kind of was as a blessing as well, and for the entrepreneurs and for innovative people. So
Yeah.
that's what I can
Yeah.
say. Yeah.
That's very true. And one thing I want to add to this is if we're talking about sort of the blessings in disguise, one key component of this crisis that really changed the landscape of the legal profession is that it finally provided access to the judicial system, to the justice system, by people who previously didn't have access to it.
Mm.
They're now doing a pilot project in King County, first in the nation, where they're going to allow out of custody defendants to appear remotely. Up until
Wow.
half a year ago or a year ago, if you're out of custody and if you are called to appear in front of judge,
You
the
have
only
to show up.
option you have is to show up at the
Yeah.
courthouse in person. If you don't, then there's going to be a bench warrant issued for your arrest. Next time you get pulled over for, busted tailgate light, you're getting thrown in jail for
For a
an
warrant. Yeah.
outstanding bench warrant.
Correct.
So that system didn't help with the prison population and the effort to minimize the number of offenses that result in people being incarcerated, which has been a goal for many years.
Very interesting.
So, yeah,
Wow.
so Judge Rogers, who is a presiding judge of King County Superior Court,
Hmm.
excellent judge, very intelligent man. So they're coming up with this pilot project where all you need to do to appear in front of judge out of custody is have access to a smartphone.
So
And if
basically, anywhere you can do from phone. Yeah,
you can do it from your car.
that's
You can do it
amazing.
from, yeah, yeah. So
Yeah.
that's a great thing. That's one thing.
Wow.
Another thing is that, all of those hearings, most of those hearings are public hearings, and that's part of the First Amendment.
Mhm.
Supreme Court interpreted the public's right to attend civil and criminal trials as an extension of freedom of speech. And any King County trial that's going on right now, you can figure out a link, go online, call a 206 number, and virtually attend those hearings. So that's great, and I think it's a major game changer for a legal system.
Wow, it is. It is. This is amazing. So this is, and again, those changes. I think at some point they were coming along, would be coming along, but it would have taken years for that to actually, like marinate in the society and somehow take place, because the administration of justice is very slow, but the pandemic pushed envelope and everybody just pretty basically, moved fast with all the innovations. This is amazing. This is just something, yeah, it's, as I say, we all used to hearing how bad the COVID is, and it is bad because there are a lot of deaths, a lot of lockdowns, a lot of misery, a lot of dismay and the economic devastation. But also, let's recognize that this pandemic brought aspects of our life that sometimes which we, again, a year ago you wouldn't have even imagined that you would have to do it that way, but it brought innovation closer to all of us. So that's a positive side of it, I think. And as old entrepreneurs and old business people, and again, what I keep saying, pivot, 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 and nobody realizes, but this is a good example how the whole system, the judicial system, has pivoted. Not only individual lawyers, but and as far as like individual lawyers, how they do business, this is a completely different topic. But this, we're talking about the judicial system that is working right now on in a new normal. This is amazing.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and I think it's important to acknowledge and to really give a shout out to all of those people at the forefront of the race to re-engineer the jury system to fit the realities of the COVID. The Washington State Bar Association, the judiciary, the Washington Department of Health, the practitioners, the different boards, the different associations that weighed in on how we're going to solve this problem and really stand behind the innovative and quiet, fascinating solutions that the judiciary came up with to revive the jury system in Washington.
I'm going to ask you a very, I don't want to say controversial question, but this question just came up. The Supreme Court of Washington decided to waive the bar exam requirements for newly law school graduates. How do you feel about it? You know what I'm
Well,
talking about?
no, no, no. I'm happy to talk about it. I'm happy to
Yeah.
talk about it. You know,
Is
I
there
have mixed
supposed to be
feelings.
like an asterisk to their bar number? you know?
I have mixed feelings about this. First of all, I think the one key lesson I learned from the bar exam, having taken the bar exam myself, is not studying, is not spending the time writing essays, is not, poring over the books, but it's stress management. It's the
Exactly.
ability.
Yeah. And I can tell you, actually, I when I was preparing for a California bar exam, I learned more from bar exam prep than from law school. Yeah.
Well, I mean, there's certainly a substantive aspect to it, but there's
Hmm.
also an aspect to it where you're just realizing where your stress threshold is and how you manage within that threshold and how you coach yourself to get to a point where you can function under pressure. And
Correct.
especially for people like myself, trial lawyers, litigators, you have to be able to thrive under stress. And if you don't, you're doomed professionally. So, my big grievance, I guess, my big issue with the waiver of a bar exam is that as part of this exercise, people are not going to go through that baptism by fire. People are not going to go through that stress
Going back to traditions
and
again.
and yeah, exactly. On the other hand, I can't help but be happy for the new wave of bar
Middle
members
lawyers.
joining the sea of the legal profession. Because just imagine this. Imagine one day, I don't know how they got the news, the letter, the email, but imagine you spend thousands of dollars in law school and you're studying for the bar exam and you probably have a job lined up, and your success depends on whether or not you pass the bar exam, and you're freaking out about it, and you get a letter saying, you know what, never mind, this year you don't have to take it. So that's great. That's a great news, and I'm happy for those people.
It is. Well, it's a nice, but again, it's my personal opinion. It's a disservice to the public, to be honest with you.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because as I say, you have to have some sort of disclosure for those people individual who didn't take the bar exam and became lawyers. Because again, public have to at least know that they're hiring people who didn't take the bar exam. I think that's something needs to be. That's like ultimate fairness to the public disclosure. It's like, yes, I'm a lawyer, but by the way, I didn't take the bar exam.
Yeah.
And the public decides whether they want to hire or not. Yeah. All right. Well, this has been very fun and interesting, David. We're gonna wrap it up, but I want to again thank you for your time. For your thoughtful input and a contribution to the Next Step show. So hopefully we'll see you again on the podcast, and we'll discuss some certain other ways of how people actually do business in the legal profession. Or maybe you could talk about maybe you will talk about what's the best way for people to how what's the best way for people to handle their personal injury cases. Will be a very interesting topic.
I'd be happy to be a guest on another show, Pavel. Thanks for having me.
Yeah.
Good luck with the podcast.
Thank
What
you.
is it, episode 7?
I believe so. Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Well, I
And
wish you many, many more.
exactly. Yeah. And I'm just gonna wrap it up. And again, if anybody wants to get a hold of David, David, what's your phone number so you can tell us? So I'll just type it up in the comments section.
Why don't we just put down mordikofflaw.com? That's probably the best way to get a hold of me.
Okay.
www.mordikofflaw.com.
Okay. I am typing it in the comments section. And if anybody has a need for a personal injury attorney or just needs to have a consult, please reach out to David. He's amazing, and he's a very smart dude. David,
Thanks for the plug.
again. Thanks again. It was very nice seeing you guys, and we're gonna wrap up.
Okay, it's a wrap. Thank you.